Jane caught her husband cheating, but she's the one facing 4 years in prison. Why? Because she grabbed a golf club, swung it at him, she never hit him, yet she's charged with assault with a deadly weapon. In California, that's a felony. I'm Dan Kolacia, a former prosecutor turned defense attorney here in Southern California. And today, I'm breaking down how this can happen and the defenses that can get your assault with a deadly weapon case dismissed. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is assault with a deadly weapon? Under California Penal Code 245A1, assault with a deadly weapon is defined as the intentional act of assaulting another person using a deadly weapon or instrument. It doesn't require you actually injure the other person. In fact, even if no physical injury occurs, you could still be charged with assault with a deadly weapon. So to simplify it, if you intentionally threaten or attempt to harm someone by using something that could cause significant injury, that's assault with a deadly weapon. This charge applies whether or not the victim gets hurt, as long as there's a reasonable belief that serious harm could have happened. Now let's talk about what the prosecutor needs to prove to convict you under Penal Code 245A1. To convict someone of assault with a deadly weapon, the prosecution has to prove 4 things beyond a reasonable doubt. 1. This is the first and most basic element. They need to show that you intended to put someone in fear of immediate harm or that you intended to use force against them. It doesn't matter whether the victim was actually injured. It's about intent. 2, you used a deadly weapon or instrument. The prosecutor must show that you used something that could cause great bodily injury, such as a knife, gun, bat, golf club, or even a vehicle in certain circumstances. 3, the assault was not justifiable. They must prove that you did not have a valid reason for using force. Self-defense or defense of others can be valid defenses, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. And 4, you acted willfully and intentionally. This is a critical element. The prosecutor must show that you intended to use force with a deadly weapon. If it was accidental, it's not assault with a deadly weapon. So in short, the prosecution is going to try to prove that you intended to do harm against someone using a weapon that could cause significant harm and that there is no justification for your actions. So what qualifies as a deadly weapon? Many people think of guns and knives, but the law is broader than that. A deadly weapon can be anything that, when used in a certain way, can cause significant injury or death. Firearms and knives are the most obvious examples, but the law goes further. A bat, tire iron, golf club, or even a car, if used recklessly, can be considered a deadly weapon. Essentially, it's an object that's used in a way that could potentially cause great bodily injury or death. And talk about assault with a deadly weapon, a judge once told me that even a ham sandwich could be a deadly weapon. I little disagree with that, but the judge's point is that anything could be a deadly weapon, even if its original purpose was not deadly. For example, let's say you pick up a beer bottle during an argument and throw it at another person. Even though that bottle isn't inherently a weapon, when used to strike someone with force, it can certainly be considered a deadly weapon and cause significant damage. Same goes for a golf club. It's the use of the object, not its original purpose, that makes it deadly. Let's move on to penalties. What happens if you're convicted of assault with a deadly weapon in California? Assault with a deadly weapon is a serious felony charge. If convicted under Penal Code 245A1, you could face up to 4 years in state prison. You could also face significant fines, and depending on the circumstances of the assault, the penalties could be much more severe. If the victim was seriously injured, or if you have a prior criminal history, the sentence can be increased from that 4 years from 7, 10, or even 20 years more. Additionally, a conviction for assault with a deadly weapon carries serious consequences beyond just prison time, including long-term damage to your criminal record, which can impact your employment, housing, and overall quality of life. Now let's talk about the 3 common defenses to an assault with a deadly weapon charge. There are several strategies we can use to fight this charge, but these 3 are among the most common. First is self-defense. If you were protecting yourself or someone else from immediate harm, this can be a valid defense. California law allows for the use of reasonable force in self-defense. And if you can show that you are facing an imminent threat, you can argue that your actions were justified. However, the key here is reasonableness. You can't escalate the situation or use excessive force. Proportionality is important in these cases. Second is the defense of lack of intent. For a conviction to happen, the prosecution must prove that you intended to assault the victim with a deadly weapon. If the weapon or item was used accidentally, this could provide reasonable doubt. For example, if you grabbed something in self-defense but didn't mean to harm anyone, you may not meet the intent requirement. In the golf club case, let's say she has a combination of her lack of intent. She could say that she lacked the intent to swing the club that accidentally went towards John. Or she could argue that it was just in the heat of the moment she was swinging the golf club. Both are valid defenses in this case. The third defense is false accusations. Unfortunately, sometimes people make false accusations against another, either to avoid blame, get back at someone, or simply because they're mistaken. If you can show that the accusation is fabricated, that means made up, through witness testimony, surveillance footage, or other evidence, this can help you fight the charge and have the case dismissed. So let's recap here. Assault with a deadly weapon is a serious felony charge, but that doesn't mean you're automatically guilty. The prosecutor must prove several key elements to convict you, and there are several powerful defenses we talked about that are available to fight the charge, including self-defense, lack of intent, or false accusations. If you're facing assault with a deadly weapon charge under California Penal Code 245A1, it's crucial that you hire an experienced criminal defense attorney who knows how to handle these cases. I've handled hundreds of types of these cases in the past and know how to use a law to your advantage and fight for the best possible outcome. If you're in the Southern California area and you're facing criminal charges, give the number above a call and set up a free consultation, and we'll discuss your case. Speaking of assault, did you know that in California, you can face felony assault charges for throwing a punch and you miss? Check out the next video where I break it all down, how to protect yourself and beat a felony assault case. See you over there.